It's time for East Coast Hustle with your host, Reba Magulik. Brought to you by GovTech, your government technology insurance company. Check them out at govtechinsurance.com. And by Accelerate Solutions, providing enterprise security, digital transformation, and strategic consulting.
Hi, I'm Reba Magulik, and welcome to East Coast Hustle, a show about just that, life's never-ending hustle in business, family, and your human network. Every show, through the authentic experiences of our guests, will dive into the mystery of success by looking failure right in the eye. Why? Because those who hustle often find a way to get what they are after, or even something unexpectedly better. As you meet our guests, our promise is to give you a personal inside view into the lives of people who have won and lost, who have been to the bottom and managed to come out on top, sometimes more than once. With that, allow me to introduce you to our guest today, Shannon Roberts. It's my pleasure to welcome Shannon today because I know that you'll be blown away by her story. Shannon is the CEO of Brand Builders and also a professional EOS implementer, which she'll tell us more about later. Shannon is an entrepreneur whose world came crashing down around her as she watched her business crumble within days before her eyes. She had to fire her best friend and business partner, and among those, even employees who were pregnant. She faced every type A successful person's worst nightmare and lived to tell about it in a refreshingly honest voice. I'm inspired by what we can learn from her. Shannon, thank you again for being here today. What I'd like to ask you is if you could tell us in your own words those scary events that turned your world upside down not even 2 years ago.
Yeah, so we're about to come up on that anniversary, actually, and I was flying back from Napa on a flight. That's a long flight from California to Maryland, and when I got on the plane, we had 1,050 events scheduled for that month.
And this is with Brand Builders.
Brand Builders. So we do event marketing in the wine and spirits industry, and we staff anything that our clients are doing.
Okay.
And obviously St. Patty's Day is a big weekend for us,
I can
so
imagine.
we had a lot of events coming up, and 1,050 events in the morning, and the cancellations were rolling in while I was on the plane. Like I was getting the emails from the plane Wi-Fi, and just powerless to call anybody, do anything. So hundreds of cancellations came in 5 hours.
Why? What was the reason?
COVID's coming. COVID shut down, the world's shutting down. Live events. So we do live events, in-person events. Some of my clients were really, truly wonderful and gracious, where they're like, we'll get through the weekend. Like, I know you've got all these people staffed, they're expecting to get paid.
Right.
We'll do it through the weekend. Some clients were like, it's gone today. So that was a Thursday.
Unbelievable.
By Friday, again, more cancellations. I had clients calling me at 5:10 on a Friday saying, cancel everything. And I was like, they're already at the stores right now doing their jobs.
Oh, Shannon. I was
like, so you want me to tell them to leave? They're already there.
I cannot even imagine what was going on in your heart and mind as you're on that flight.
Yeah, so the weekend kind of goes by in a blur. I'm trying to think, like, what are we going to do? How long is this going to last? And they kept saying 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I was like, okay, 2 weeks. It's probably not 2 weeks. It's probably a month. And then I'm calculating, like, okay, if Cinco's canceled, Easter's going to be affected. Will we be back by Cinco? And in my head, we always would be. We'd be back by Cinco.
Right.
And
that was probably what kept you going.
That was a far goalpost for me. Like, we'll be back by Cinco,
This is
May 5th.
temporary.
Like, this is just a fluke. This will be over. And then, those 5 days passed, a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out, could I keep paying people? Really doing calculations like maybe I'm personally bankrupting myself, like taking all the money out of the 401ks and the retirement accounts and the kids' college funds and keeping the business running.
How many employees did you have at this point?
At the time, I had 10 full-time employees, as well as almost 400 independent contractors.
Good gracious.
Yeah. So.
Oh my.
And I felt a lot of personal responsibility for those people.
Of course. Yeah. And this is your business. How old was the business at this point?
At that time, about 11 years. We had, in 2019, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, so about 11 years. And, in those days, just more and more cancellation. So by the 17th, so between the 12th and the 17th, there were 0 events. I mean, it was over. And
oh my gosh.
I'm very fortunate that I belong to an organization called EO. It stands for the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we have small forums, and you become incredibly tight with these people in a way that people that aren't in forum might not understand. And my forum held like an emergency Zoom for me that night of the 17th.
How many people were in this forum?
It was 6 of us, and it became abundantly clear based on just talking through people that had businesses during the recession and about what my next steps had to be, my very painful next steps. So the next morning, I laid off my COO and best friend, and then I called every person on my management team and talked to them personally. One of those young women, she was going to tell me that week that she was pregnant. She had been holding it in as a surprise and was going to tell me that week that she was pregnant. So she told me as I'm laying her off.
Oh, how heartbreaking.
I actually thought I was going to vomit. It was really that gut-wrenching. She had been working for me maybe for 7 years. I mean, she actually started with me in college doing the store tastings.
She grew up with you.
She grew up with me, yeah. And I was just blown away that I was facing that moment. It's
almost like letting your kids go.
It was...
You know, the business is your baby.
The business was my baby. The business was my life. I mean, my entire identity was wrapped up in being the CEO of this company.
Absolutely. And sorry to interrupt you here. It's like from one entrepreneur to another, unless you've gone down that journey of entrepreneurship and building a business from concept, you just can't understand truly how personal that is unless you've done it. So I mean, just hearing you talk about this, it's devastating, and I have so many questions, but please continue.
Yeah. So I then drafted an email that I struggled to even write, and sent that out to the contractors and said, I don't know what's happening to the world or what's going to happen, and here's what I know. And it was just very raw, would be, and honest, and people actually reached out to me in a way I wasn't expecting.
How so?
They were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry this is happening to you.
Oh,
even though it was happening to them, I had dozens of people reach out to me like, I can't believe this is happening to you. So, and then nothingness. Like nothing. Shutdowns, masks, the whole, and Cinco came and went, I mean, in a blink of an eye, and it was obvious that it wasn't coming back. And I can remember very clearly, so we do in-store demos for wine and spirits, and Total Wine announced, which is a big place that we do a lot of tastings, that they weren't doing any more tastings for the rest of the year. And that was sometime in June. And my only reaction was just a state of overwhelm that I could hardly imagine, and I went to bed. Like for the rest of the day. I was like, here in bed, here I go. And not my finest hour, but I was just blown away. And again, another friend from EO told me about something called the Stockdale paradigm.
Oh, wait, what's that? I've never heard of that before.
So Admiral Stockdale he was a prisoner of war.
Okay.
And he survived obviously horrible conditions when a lot of others didn't. And when someone asked him about that, he very clearly said, I never gave up hope, but I never put a timeline on it. So where others in the camp would say, I'll be home by Christmas, I'll be home by my child's birthday, I'll be home by, and when that never happened, they gave up hope.
Oh, so that was causing them to give up hope. The milestone.
Yes,
or the
when
deadline.
the milestones got missed, they lost hope.
And I can see how that would work for,
yes,
type
so
A business type
I just
people.
adopted that, and I said, okay, I built this business during a recession. It's going to come back. I just have to completely let go of the timelines. And
I can't imagine how you did this, Shannon.
It was not easy for me because I'm a control freak.
That's right. Like, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, could I have done that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even understand how you...
I don't really think I had much of a choice, because it would either stay in bed.
Yes.
Okay, like, I have kids. I can't just stay in bed.
Right.
So it was stay in bed or work the paradigm. And
work the paradigm.
Work the paradigm.
Stay in bed or work the paradigm.
Those were my two choices.
That's going on a T-shirt.
It was very clear to me. Those were my two choices.
So I have to ask you, where in the world did you draw your strength from? Like, to move forward with these hard decisions, was it prayer? Did you have a mentor? You talked about EO. Was there a sign from the universe? Because I'm picturing you going through this, and I just feel like, was there a light shining from heaven that said, Shannon, don't give up, hang in there? Like, what?
Yeah.
Describe this for us.
So it was probably two things. The first is, I have faced some very unbelievable challenges in my life, and I have come to believe, and I firmly do believe, that the universe is always working in my favor.
Wow.
And even if in the moment, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why or how,
Yes.
I hold on to that dearly.
You have faith.
I have a lot of faith that everything's working to my greater good.
Amazing. Because I take it because you've seen a pattern over the course of your life where something terrible happened, there was a failure, but somehow you move past that time frame and you're able to look back and say, oh, now I get it.
Yes.
That's what resulted of this, or this is how it changed me or shaped me for the next big thing.
Absolutely.
Is that?
Yes. And what I've taught myself is that it may not be immediately clear, and I have to be patient. Not exactly my strong suit, but I put my patient pants on and know that the universe is working in my favor.
You put your patient pants on? Remind me to buy a pair of those. I don't think I have a pair of patient pants.
Mine are capris. They're not very long.
That's so cute. Well, so this is great. So it sounds as if the failures of the past, that's where you were able to buckle down and say, I'm going to get through this. But I mean, this is a pretty dramatic story here. There are a lot of people that you had to let go. You still had to figure out where that next paycheck is coming from. You still had to figure out, how am I going to feed my kids, et cetera. So what happened after this?
I made a couple of strategic decisions in that moment before I actually let everyone go. And the first was that I was only keeping the people that I needed to build the business back.
Okay.
And that was 1.5 people out of 400.
And so let me stop you there for a moment. I mean, even that to me is just remarkable. I've often said, even in my own business, I'm like, you gotta hire the type of person that does 5 jobs effortlessly. And I think you're one of those people, I'm one of those people. We run our payroll, we do everything, we do the hiring, the sales pitches, everything. It's remarkable to me that when you look at this team, you're like, okay, it's 1.5 people really that is the heartbeat that can get this back on track.
So just 2 months before this, I had actually named my successor.
Oh, get out.
So it was a young woman, literally in her mid-20s, late 20s.
Oh.
And I sat her down and I said, this company's my baby, but I don't want to do the level of intensity. Running an event marketing company it's a brutal business.
It sounds like it's 24/7.
It's a 24/7, and especially weekends, and it's especially everything.
Holidays.
Yeah, holidays.
You never get holidays. That's when you're working.
And it's just the constant calls, like your phone. I literally field about 5,000 texts a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I talked to this woman. Her name's Michelle, and when I started making the calls, she was the first person I called, and I said, I'm about to let the entire company go except you. And my part-time bookkeeper, because I knew that
the 20-something who's going to be your successor. Because obviously it took a lot of care and time to even figure out. I think that's the toughest question for an entrepreneur as well, is who could replace you? So I think it was a big win. Maybe looking back to what you were saying, the sign from the universe, you happened to pick who your number 2 is going to be before all of this shakeout happened.
Yeah. And interestingly, EOS is how I picked her.
Really?
So EOS has this tool called an organizational checkup.
Yes.
And you fill out this little quiz, and Michelle's answer is most closely aligned with mine.
Oh my! So it really was an unbiased decision.
Yes. I mean, I have a gut.
Right, of course.
Like she, really percolated to the top in terms of somebody that wanted it. But the scoring kind of solidified my decision.
Yeah. And I have to say, so Shannon provided me a copy about the EOS methodology, a book called Traction. And I don't want to steal your thunder. I know I want to give you an opportunity to talk about this, but I'm reading it right now. And already for my business, the D8 group, we're starting to think about this.
It's a page turner. Like, I couldn't put it down when I first read it. Yeah.
When you're a successful entrepreneur, often you're like, oh, I don't need anybody's help. I obviously have good gut instincts. That's how I got this far. Who could teach me anything? There's a little bit of that hubris. But truly, looking at this book, I'm like, wow, this is forcing me to rethink.
Correct.
With the scoring, not just depending on the gut, but anyway, I don't want to steal your thunder on that. But before we go there, Please continue with this story. I want to hear how it played out and how the turning point for you.
So one of the other pieces of advice I got, another person in EO, she had a crazy situation where she lost 80% of her business overnight due to a company being sold. And she said the one thing that she knew that worked for her was a communication strategy with her staff.
Okay.
So I maintained regular communication with the field team that obviously wasn't working for me, but I wanted them to hear from me.
How did you do it? Email, phone calls?
It was email mostly.
Okay.
More robust communication with key people.
Okay.
More frequent, more passionate, personal. With everyone, though, I was communicating, like, you're a 1099 contractor, you're eligible for the PPP, I'm helping you, like, here's the steps, I'm watching all these webinars, I'm on an SBA webinar, I'm on this, I'm going to share with you everything that I'm learning. So I did that kind of thing. With those key people, there was a woman that I'm friends with down in San Antonio, and she started making masks before masks were a thing.
Oh, really?
And they were really cute, and they had a heart on them, and it said, "In this together."
Okay.
So, and what she did, it was such an amazing idea. So people would buy the masks. She would take the proceeds from the sales of the masks and buy gift cards from restaurants to help the restaurant industry, and then she would give those gift cards to the homeless shelters. So it was such a 360 endeavor, and I wanted to support her because I was so impressed with the thought that went into it.
But even the fact that you wanted to help her in your moment of crisis, and the fact that you wanted to communicate with your employees in your moment of crisis, and not just communicate with them, but giving them tips, passing along the things that you're picking up on the SBA and others, it goes without saying, I'm in just sheer admiration of you. The more I learn, the more I'm like, wow, because I can picture myself under the covers of my bed
being
crying,
like, not today.
and nobody see me. I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling, so many different things. I can't face the world, but it just hits me right in the heart, Shannon, because to do an act of kindness in your moment of crisis, that's really something else. That's really something else. And what I'd like to ask you is, do you feel that almost helped you cope, like taking the attention off yourself and looking at others in your organization and in your ecosystem?
I think doing something, because I'm not a person that can sit still for very long. Okay, so
I hear you.
There was so little to do that helping those people gave me purpose.
Yes.
And I needed purpose.
Right.
So, just like with the mask thing, I mailed masks out to 70 people, and I wrote a note for everybody about the whole story about what Magali was doing, and then people reached out to me. They're like, "Oh my God!" And I can remember specifically one person calling me, and she's like, "I feel like you're the only person who cares about me right now."
Oh,
and I was just like,
How did you? So, how many tears were shed? Because I'm trying to picture you making these phone calls to all of your people. Did you get through it with your professional pants on, or were there tears? And is it okay to have tears?
I will tell you that my friend and COO, we were on Zoom, because everybody's terrified that they're going to die, and because we had spent. Not just every work day together, but weekends. We would take girl trips to Chicago.
This is real bonding.
This is real. Yeah. She was my people, and we missed each other so much. And we're on this Zoom, just ugly crying at each other, ugly crying. My kids are looking at me like I'm crazy, but just the isolation,
the
depression, the
uncertainty.
We just let it be real in that moment, and just all the ugly crying. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that?
Ugly crying? Yeah, let it out.
Do you recommend that authenticity? Because sometimes it's wait a minute. I was joking around about the professional pants. We're trained in that way that, hey, when it's an HR situation, you're trained to deal in a certain way, unemotional, detached from your team. But this is interesting because. So you would say, hey, let it out. Well,
I would say that I was very careful. The person that I ugly crying to, she wasn't someone who was ever going to judge me negatively.
She was in your inner circle.
She's in my inner circle.
Okay.
Would I do that in front of a client? Would I do that in front of a rank and file employee? No, I wouldn't have.
Yes.
I wouldn't have. Now, I was really honest in some of these emails that I sent about the time I'm spending with my children, how I felt about the uncertainty, so that people didn't feel disconnected from me. I wanted to try to maintain some level of connection with these people. both because, again, it gave me purpose, but I was being realistic. I needed these people to come back when the lights went on.
But see, just the fact that you said that, that speaks again to your faith.
Yeah,
You
when
just
the
said
lights
when
came
the
back.
light, not if.
Yeah, when the lights
when
came back
the
on.
lights come back on. You always knew that, and that's what I find so fascinating in this hustle. You know, that's the whole point of this show. I just think that you're just wired.
Well, there was a ton of
way.
hustle to get the business back because these big companies that are my clients were very content to sit on the sidelines because
they're saving money.
They're not just saving money; they're making money hand over fist.
These
in liquor
people are
stores.
drinking liquor at
like
home.
crazy. Okay, so
I know our alcohol consumption certainly went up during that time.
So the liquor stores are killing it, and they're like, we'll just wait and wait and wait and wait. And I was like, enough with the waiting. Like, we have to get back to this. So I have a network of people that do what I do in other parts of the country, and one of those women was in Texas, and she told me that her stuff was coming back, and I was like, oh my God, we've got nothing, and her world is coming. And so then I was like, well, I'm going to make this happen. So I reached out to local distributors that I had good relationships with and said, you know, Texas is back, and you're in the same company as that company that's in Texas.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of residents. Some people shut me down entirely. They're like, it's just not going to happen. You need to wait. You need to wait. But I was really diligent with this one particular distributor, and we got a handful of events at the end of September, and I mean, like maybe 16, like a handful.
But still, I mean,
yeah.
So talk about the diligence, because I think that's the core of the hustle. That is the core. Like, would the average person go out there and say, "Damned if I don't get these"? Like, can you tell us a little bit how you got that to happen?
So we did certain things that we thought would make people want to do it again. So for instance, we have custom software, and the people in our field use a mobile app to report their data back to us.
Okay.
So we actually created a health screening within the mobile app, so that before anybody went and did a tasting, they had to pass the health screening. That way we knew we weren't sending somebody who was like infectious into the accounts. So that was one thing we did. We changed procedures, protocols, we made signage, we changed verbiage in terms of confirmation emails. Like, on our side, we were super buttoned up. So that's how I spent some of the summer, is like bulletproofing ourselves from people, you know, from potential clients going, well, what about this? And what about that? Like, you know, it was hand sanitizer and gloves and anything they needed.
Any question
we had it ready to go.
Pop up.
Yeah, so we felt like we were very solid there. The person that I was speaking to that was, again, very reticent, but the liquor industry is just, everybody knows everybody.
Okay.
I mean, when it's a very tight-knit community. So I happen to know that this one individual was very good friends with the woman who I know down in Texas, and I pulled the friend card.
You know, you got to pull the card at the right time.
It was the only piece of ammunition I had.
You use what you have.
I did, yeah.
And you talk about the tight-knit community. I mean, there's so many correlations to the government contracting industry too here in DC that, you know, we're so embedded in. There are friendships, there are alliances, and you try not to misuse or overuse, but this was clearly one of those situations.
It felt like do or die in that moment, because our busy season is September, October, November, December, and I knew if we didn't come back then, it would be 6 more months or more before we'd come back.
Right.
So I felt like, because I really thought, okay, September's coming, the events will come. It's the busy season. They're gonna.
They have to.
And then nothing came.
Oh, Lord.
So that's when I knew I had to force the issue. Yeah.
But you know, again, there's so many pieces of this that I love. You made it bulletproof. You buttoned it up. You had to anticipate in a totally unprecedented, uncharted time and territory what could be those objections. And how can we address those concerns before the client even brings it up? So there's so much salesmanship that goes into that, so much thought. I really admire. And it's like when you hear stories like this, it's like, hell yeah, you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve that win.
It was a tremendous struggle, but I would say that, I mean, business is obviously back, and not in all of our territories. Maryland and DC is stronger than ever. Virginia, because the government runs the alcohol, there's still no tastings in the state of Virginia. I actually wrote the governor of Virginia a letter last week about that. I figured it can't hurt, right? Somebody needs to hear my play. But
shake those trees.
Yeah,
make
so
it
we're
happen.
still waiting for Virginia to come back online.
Okay.
We'll be back with more East Coast Hustle with your host, Reba Magulick, after this brief timeout.
For all of my friends in the government contracting business, I want to tell you about a company I know well, led by one of our guests on East Coast Hustle, Kevin Fitzpatrick at GovTech. Kevin and his team are experts in liability issues that face the GovCon industry.
Now, back to East Coast Hustle with your host, Reba Magulick, and today's special guest, Shannon Roberts.
So let me ask you a couple other things. And I don't know that I would call this failure, but did this hurt your pride? And did you have any haters who discouraged you during this time?
I would say it definitely hurt my pride. Like I said, a huge chunk of my identity is being the CEO of a company. Not my favorite thing to reveal, but in true authenticity, when my one child, I think it was my son, was very young, it's a Mother's Day thing, like, I love my mother so much, and what my mother's best at, and he wrote work. I was like, oh,
so
terrible. Yeah, he was 4.
I don't know that that's terrible though, but of course that's a whole conversation for another
it's another show. Right.
Mom guilt.
Mom guilt. It was real. So I was like, oh, I'm best at work. What my mom loves most is coffee, and what she's best at is work. Yeah.
I say it's a compliment, Shannon,
Yeah.
because I face the same thing. Like the kids see me as a businesswoman, and they see me hustling and building my business. I take it as a compliment.
Yeah,
I do.
And now, now that my children are teenagers, my daughter wants me to write a book. Like she's just so supportive.
She's your fan.
Yeah, and she's a huge fan. Yeah, so which is great. It feels wonderful.
So were there some haters during this time?
There weren't haters for me personally or the way I was approaching anything, but there were people that were so like tough shit about everything.
What do you mean?
You know, when I would approach clients or when I would approach distributors, they're like tough shit. Like,
I can't believe
just
like,
sit on the sidelines
heartless.
and wait. I mean, it was literally like, sit on the sidelines and wait. You're not my problem.
Wow.
I got a lot of "you're not my problem" from.
Did that surprise you? Like, did you think that the relationship was more sincere and cordial than it was, and then that was like your reality moment?
In some respects, it was definitely a surprise. But if I think about and talk to my practical side of myself, it shouldn't have been, because I have definitely seen some very ugly sides of the liquor industry, and so knowing that that's there and it's an undercurrent. Practically, it wasn't a surprise. Personally, it definitely was.
Yeah, but you're stronger for it now, right? It's kind of like
I'm smarter for it, for sure.
Know thy environment. Know what you're really in.
Yeah.
So here we're kind of in the DC market, Virginia, Maryland, DC. In this status-conscious DC market, let's just say it, right? Where people are very concerned about appearances and what they share with others. Am I successful? Am I projecting success? It's a very status-conscious place.
It definitely is.
I
used to live in Northern Virginia, and I actually moved to Baltimore.
For
that might have been one of those reasons. Yeah.
That might have been but I mean, it's politics, right? We have politics right on our backyard. It's all about saying the right thing, saying it with the right words. So my question to you is, why are you so comfortable being vulnerable and sharing your story? And how do you stand so strongly in the face of scrutiny? What is that? What is this at your core, Shannon, that makes you be this way? Because this is very scary to others to even have the guts to talk about this.
So I think one of the things is I've always been told I'm honest to a fault, and people don't usually mean that nicely.
It's not a compliment.
That is not a compliment. Yeah. I have this like way about me where I just really have trouble pretending like something's okay when I don't think it is, and I'll say it.
No poker face.
No poker face. Yeah. Maybe resting bitch face, but no poker face. But the authentic part comes from, I think, a journey I've been on for maybe since like 2015.
Okay.
In 2015, I read an amazing book called The Desire Map.
The Desire Map. Okay, I'll have to write that one down.
It's written by a woman named Danielle Laporte. And it really changed the way I thought about the journey I was on.
Okay.
And that, and I also had a female entrepreneur coach who put a couple of really great tidbits in my head that are there pretty much, which one of them is stop talking so negatively to myself all the time. Mm-hmm. And the other one is that people who mind don't matter, and people who matter don't mind.
Oh, wow.
And so that one, I tell my kids that, I tell good friends that when they're upset about something, is people who mind don't matter, and people who matter don't mind.
Wow. Well, it's like we're fed all these beautiful sayings. We see these inspirational quotes all the time, but you had to believe it.
Yes.
And you were given the opportunity to really say, oh, this isn't just a nice, these aren't nice words that I put together to make fool myself, but you had to believe it.
And live it. This is a, walk the talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a walk the talk.
So share with us, what is the biggest lesson that you learned, and what would you advise to other entrepreneurs who are maybe going through this exact same situation right now?
So the biggest lesson is probably something I already knew, which is go with your gut.
Okay.
Like in the end, when people were pushing back, I know I had to keep pushing forward. Mm-hmm. I've made big decisions in my life based on that gut, and when I haven't followed it, I've paid dearly. So it is go with your gut.
Interesting.
When you don't listen to something deep inside of you, and what was telling me deep inside of me is that I just needed to keep pushing.
Wow.
And then the most advice I would give is get out of your own head.
Oh my gosh, how hard is that for us?
Get out of your own head.
And I don't know that it's a woman versus man issue. Boy, we are in our heads.
Yes. So I kept, sleep. I wasn't sleeping, and and
you can't sleep because of
I
all
can't
the
sleep
noise.
because it's so much in my head, right?
Yeah.
So I had to get out of my own head, and I had to find a place of gratitude for where I was.
Wow, that must have been hard.
I think it's easier when you're sitting on a beach.
Were you on the beach?
I spent that summer on the beach.
Smart lady.
So I think it's easier when you're sitting on the beach. But I had to, I just really had to get in a place of gratitude, which is my kids are healthy, and I've got an amazing family and an awesome support system, and the opportunity to rebuild. As opposed to, one of the things I had decided was if I was going to have a company for people to come back to is why I had to make very swift decisions. So fail fast.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Fail fast.
Fail fast.
Fail fast is the lesson. Fail fast.
I love that. Well, the other part of that equation that you just mentioned, and I've always believed, is making quick decisions, or just making decisions at all. So one of my mantras is, even a bad decision is better than no decision at all. And folks are just stymied. They're paralyzed. What is it? Paralysis by analysis?
Yes.
That is just a killer. Make a freaking decision. Just pick it, draw the line, and move forward. And if it's wrong, that's okay. You can correct and make a different decision. But I think it's you mentioned fail fast, but also make quick decisions.
Yeah. We'll be back with more East Coast Hustle with your host, Reba Magulick, after this brief timeout.
On this show, I never promote executive leaders and companies that I don't know well. My friends and colleagues at Accelerate Solutions are truly gifted experts across the company's 3 service areas: enterprise security, digital transformation, and strategic consulting. Accelerate optimizes efficiency and effectiveness and enhances the security of America's physical and cyber infrastructure, as well as personnel. Agencies as large, complex, and important as the FBI depend on Accelerate. To learn more, visit acceleratesolutions.com. That's XCELERATE solutions.com.
Now, back to East Coast Hustle with your host, Reba Magulick, and today's special guest, Shannon Roberts.
Now, I want to shift gears. Tell us your success story. What is your life today? What is your business today? Tell us about EOS. Tell us about Brand Builders.
So, I read the book Traction, and I finished on a Friday, and by Monday, I came to my team and said, we're doing this.
Wow.
And people that work for me are very used to me figuring out there's a better way to do something and saying, we're doing a 180 and we're doing this now.
And they trust you. They just get in line behind you.
If you're not comfortable with that kind of dynamic environment, Brand Builders is not the place for you.
Right.
Everybody knows it. I'm very transparent about that during the hiring process.
Good.
So we started implementing it. We started getting done more in 2 weeks than we were getting done in whole quarters before. I just couldn't believe the lift it gave my team.
Are you serious?
Connection.
This sounds like magic.
It felt like magic. And honestly, as an EOS implementer, we train ourselves to tell teams, like, this is not a magic pill, but when it's happening, it feels like it.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah, it's not a magic pill. You have to work it. Like, you can't just snap your fingers. It's not a magic pill.
Right.
Because there's real work behind
work
it.
has to go into it.
But when it's happening, you just feel like, wow. So, I knew what the power of EOS. I knew what it could do for companies firsthand. Brand Builders is a women business certified company, and WeBank was putting on a cohort for EOS. So, it's May. I have nothing else to do. So I participated in the cohort. And
oh wait, when you say you have nothing else to do, you mean like the business is running on its own wheels?
No. So this was the May of COVID. So there's nothing to do.
So the opportunity was there.
Correct. So I was like, I have time for this, whereas otherwise I would have never had time for this.
Isn't that funny how the universe works?
Yes. So the universe is opening the window for me.
Yeah.
And so I participated in the cohort, and I thought, I really like this, and that's when I investigated becoming a professional implementer. And so that summer, I went through their boot camp, which is kind of their certification process, and then I started doing EOS. So
you were able to apply it to your own real business.
I did, and so now I help entrepreneurial companies run a better business. We look to train people on 3 things, which is we help them on vision, which is making sure people know where they're going and how they're going to get there. Traction, which is the name of the book.
Right.
So that's injecting real discipline and accountability in the way most companies have never experienced before.
Right.
And healthy. So Patrick Lencioni, he's a pretty famous business author, and he has something where he says, like, most teams spend all their time working on becoming smart, which, like, better what they do, better delivering their product or service, but precious little time becoming healthy, which is more cohesive as a leadership team. And the difference between companies that really succeed and want to beat their competition and fail is teamwork.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about really developing that solid foundation.
Like I said, I haven't finished it yet. Thank you for sending me the copy, but I feel as though it's already transforming how I look at my own business. I think I'm at the chapter where it's discussing picking your perfect client.
Yes.
And of course I'm thinking, well, I know who my client is, federal government contractors, but you've really got to get more granular because it informs every piece of business. And there are some clients that you actually have to say, this is not a fit. This is not the ideal. Let me narrow my focus, narrow my messaging, narrow my marketing strategy. There's a lot of good practical.
Yeah. I mean, focus is everything for an entrepreneurial company because you have limited resources. So if you liken it to the analogy that the sun rains down 100 billion kilowatts of energy on the earth every day, and if you don't wear your sunscreen, the worst thing happens to you is you get a sunburn. A laser, micro amounts of the same amount of energy, but because it's focused, it can cut through steel, diamonds, etc. So the focus is what it's all about.
Yeah. And it's hard too because depending on where you are in your stage of entrepreneurship, first of all, it takes guts. No guts, no glory. And that frame of that person who has that mindset kind of thinks they can do anything. And plus, when you're starting off new, you're scrappy.
Yeah.
You'll take whatever clients you can get. So it does require transformation of thinking. So I think that's very good. I just have a couple more questions for you. So in a recent LinkedIn post, you shared that you were passed up for a promotion that you deserved. Your response to this was to quit and venture out on your own. Can you share some of the details of this story with us? Because I think that's very fascinating, and I think a lot of people are teetering on the edge of that same precipice.
So, again, working in the liquor industry at the time, I worked for a company, and to me there was definitely a very clearly defined path to work your way up the ladder. I was incredibly competent at my job. In fact, I would say I excelled. And this position became open in the Maryland, D.C. market, and I thought for sure I would be, at a minimum, asked to interview. Even if I didn't get the job.
Right.
I mean, guaranteed, I know the market. I've been working with this company for years.
Hello, who
I'm
else?
going to get, in my head I was like, this is unnatural. But I I didn't get the offer to interview. So I went to my VP and I said,
what the
it's
hell?
pretty odd to me that you're not even offering me. And his response to me was, Shannon, you're pregnant.
No, he did not
And in my
say
head-
that to you. Are you kidding me?
And in my head,
No
I
way.
was
What
like,
year
I
was
could sue you for this.
Yes, you could have. What
I
year?
could have.
What year was this?
I have to think. It had to be like 07 or 08. Probably 08.
Unfreaking
The 21st century. This happened in the 21st century, yes.
I was like, was this the 80s? When did this happen?
This happened in the 21st century.
Unbelievable.
And in that moment, I knew that this wasn't a place I wanted to work for. Mm-hmm. I knew that I wasn't being respected for the work I did. Mm-hmm. And they ended up putting a man in that position that not only was terrible at his job, but had a known addiction problem.
Unbelievable. What?
But he was a man.
Oh,
And
gracious.
that's when I was like, oh, it's time to roll. I started making him, and I didn't quit immediately. I'm practical. I'm like,
You're
I need
smart.
I need
You
this
lay
job
out the
right now.
foundation.
But I started laying the groundwork, figuring
Exactly.
some things out, and but that was the turning moment. That was the moment that I'm like, this is not the place for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make one little side note. Ladies, anybody out there that's right now pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant, I did my finest and hardest work while I was pregnant.
Because
all
you're trying
the
to
way
prove
up.
yourself.
Yes, like
Yes.
you have so much to
Yes.
push through. And I
Yeah.
look back in time, I'm like, wow, because you're on a deadline.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
trying to get stuff done. So please, if you're looking to apply for a job and in your mind you're thinking, well, I'm about to plan my family, please don't let that hold you back. It is not a factor.
Lean in.
It is not a factor. Lean in, absolutely. Wow. Okay. Great story. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You landed.
Yeah.
You exceeded.
And I kind of had the best of both worlds. So I'm still the owner of Brand Builders.
Yes.
Michelle is mostly running the day-to-day. It's been a training process. She's actually pregnant.
There you go.
She's due any day. Like, I'm like, tomorrow, my birthday. I know my birthday.
I want to share a birthday with
she's
this baby.
due any minute. And then my best days are actually spent with my EOS clients, helping them run a better business. And the gratitude that comes from these teams, because they can see the progress, they can feel the lift, just like I did when I started doing EOS. That's the best reward of all.
I was going to say that's the reward in itself.
Yeah, it's just the best way to spend a day.
Bravo,
Yeah.
Shannon
I love
Roberts. Bravo.
Thank
Hats
you.
off to you. What an amazing story. I think that a lot of people, the story is going to resonate. It really is. So I thank you for being so honest. It's hard to find people who will speak so honestly and authentically about their failures and successes and fears. So bravo to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here with you today.
Absolutely. I really want to thank Shannon for being our first guest on East Coast Hustle. The reason for the hustle is that when you're flat on your back, how do you stand up? Clearly, hustlers and survivors are cut from a certain cloth. We could choose to be the victim. We could choose to run and hide and be shamed. For those who usually win, failure can often be an insurmountable blow, possibly the only blow that would keep us down. However, as we all know, losing is a part of winning. So keep hustling, never give up, never settle, and never stop chasing your dreams. And always, always buy a great shoes.